Copy.
When you come to Kvarner, treat yourself to an experience you will remember. Enjoy the luxurious ambience. Experience superior service. Indulge in endless pleasures. The pearl of the tourism offer in the pearl of the Adriatic. Liburnia, Hotels and Villas.
Welcome along to Brands Hatch. It's time for the annual tradition that is the American Speed Fest for the NASCAR Whelen Euro Series. As you can see, the 10th anniversary American Speed Fest taking place here in the UK over the next 2 days. It's one of the busiest weekends of the year for the NASCAR Whelen Euro Series, one of the busiest weekends of the year at this former Olympic Games and Formula One Grand Prix venue. Always an exciting time when NASCAR Whelen Euro Series is in town here at Brands Hatch. You may have seen before the weekend even started, the announcement was put out there, a 5-year extension to this event. We're going to at least get to American Speed Fest 15. Such is the mutual enjoyment of the American Speed Fest between NASCAR, Team FJ, and MSV, who operate this Brands Hatch circuit. American flags fly in the air. Pretty soon, you won't be able to walk for seeing an incredible American car, a NASCAR stock car. They take all manner of machines to this weekend, the British public. It's a great opportunity to showcase your mettle, literally or otherwise, to like-minded American car enthusiasts, all while you have the fabulous backdrop of the NASCAR Whelen Euro Series. My name is Adam Weller. I'll be bringing you the action this weekend, beginning with qualifying, which is going to start in just about 7 minutes, as you can see on screen. Just to explain, given this is a 1.2 mile, much shorter circuit than we normally have, the qualifying format this weekend is going to be slightly different. Group 1 will be the first group out there on circuit. Now, Group 1 is for drivers between 13th and 99th in the standings. So they will have a short or a longer, a short time on the grid, just 10 minutes out there on circuit, set a lap time in EuroNASCAR Pro. Group 2 Another 10 minutes for that's for the first and between first and 12th in the standings, and then the combined top 10 in EuroNASCAR Pro will go on to the Super Pole session, which is just 5 minutes in length. So two 10-minute sessions. We'll see between a dozen and 18 cars out in each session, depending on whether it's Group 1 and Group 2. Then your fastest 10 will go into the Super Pole. EuroNASCAR 2 is somewhat similar, except we don't have a Super Pole session. We have just the 2 group sessions, and your fastest lap time across both sessions will be your pole sitter. So that could be interesting because as the track rubbers in, especially because there's been some resurfacing around Graham Hill Bend, this circuit will rubber in as the day goes on. Potentially Group 2 in EuroNASCAR 2 could be the place to be. This is the Brands Hatch Indy Circuit, then just a shade under 2 kilometers, 1.2 miles in length. And you see the key parts of this circuit. It's an easy track map to draw. It's not an easy circuit to drive in the slightest. Turn 1, the very tricky Paddock Hill bend. Turn 2, the run up towards Druids. Then you go downhill to the newly resurfaced Graham Hill bend at turn 3. Surtees follows, followed by Clearways, or rather by Clark Curve, and then Clearways to complete the lap before you go onto the Brabham Straight, which of course itself is a bit of a misnomer because it's not quite straight. So as you can see, the cars are getting ready to go out onto the circuit. What I do want to do just before we get too far into today's event is I would quite like to acknowledge our circuit commentary team this weekend. Here at the Brands Hatch Indy Circuit, a key part of making American Speedfest the atmospheric event that it is. We were due to have the wonderful Chris Dawes on commentary this weekend. He's not feeling too well at the moment, as you may have seen if you're in the English motorsport community. He's okay, but he's not able to be a part of the festivities this weekend. And if you've been here at American Speedfest, you'll be familiar with Chris Dawes, his energy, his hosting capabilities. So it's a massive shame that Chris isn't here. So we pass our well wishes on to Chris Dawes, who I'm sure will be watching at home and still taking an American Speedfest. We hope you get well soon, Chris, and we look forward to seeing you back for American Speedfest 11. The very capable hands of Mark Werrell among the commentary team this weekend for the circuit crew. If you're coming along later on today or just for Sunday at American Speedfest, you won't be hearing me around the PA system, but you'll be hearing some really wonderful broadcasting from some excellent people. So another great reason to come along to American Speedfest for sure. You see some of the Jeep clubs among those that have already pitched up. Ford GT40s and AC Cobras I can see as well on the road there. So we've got an ever-increasing number of cars, spectators still rolling in on bright and early on this Saturday morning too. And in about 3 minutes' time, the cars will be rolling too. Interesting situations across both championships coming into this qualifying session. In EuroNASCAR Pro, it is Lucas Lasser who comes into this as our as our championship leader. However, Lucas, I don't believe, is entered. Yes, he is. Lucas Lasser has entered this weekend. He did say, you know what, I don't think I'm going to. I think it's just the one-off. I'm not going to race the rest of the season. But sure enough, Lucas Lasser is on the entry list in the number 64 Speedhouse car, his own team, no less. He leads the championship points in EuroNASCAR Pro with 71 points. Martin Dubeck is second in the EuroNASCAR Pro standings on 64. Mark Goosens and Anthony Kumpen on 63 apiece. Here's the points allocation, as you can see, 40 points for a win. Vladimir Osiortsis in EuroNASCAR 2 has a perfect 80 points for getting 2 race wins in the races at our season opening weekend in Valencia. Obviously, once we get towards the end of the season, the finals weekends, the points double, 80 for a win, 70 points for second place, and so on. So going into the final weekend of the year, it's often all to play for, and that will almost certainly be the case again by the time we reach the end of this season, but that is quite a long way away. So EuroNASCAR Pro qualifying will be our first out there, and it'll be interesting to see whether Lucas Lasser, with his vast levels of experience, can try and get himself up there and continue to defend what is currently a 7-point championship lead. It really is quite an experienced top end of the championship in EuroNASCAR Pro at this stage, with Lucas Lasser there. Martin Dubeck is obviously newer. He was a EuroNASCAR 2 champion back in 2021. Mark Goossens and Anthony Kumpen, they've both done just about everything there is to do here at the world of EuroNASCAR, and indeed in some cases at Brands Hatch as well. Frederic Gabillon, 5th in the standings, a long-time rival of Anthony Kumpen. And if you haven't already, do check out the segment we had little bit of a self-interview between the two drivers, Anthony Kumpen and Frederic Gabillon. They talked us around the circuit and also discussed, let's say, some of their history. And if you're a fan of British motorsport, think late-stage Jason Plato, Matt Neal. Very much a formerly bitter rivalry, which now seems to be quite amicable. Vladimir Osiortis, the points leader in EuroNASCAR 2, is also in EuroNASCAR Pro, and he's on 59 points in 6th position behind Gabillon. Of course, Liam Hasemans, he is down in 11th in the standings right now. That's despite a race win in Valencia. He didn't get to the flag at the second race after a collision, but he'll be raring and fighting fit. This, the Brands Hatch Indy Circuit, is a facility where Liam Hasemans took his first win in last year's EuroNASCAR 2 campaign on the way to what would ultimately become a title victory. He did that, of course, in the final 2 laps in overtime. Really did have a grandstand finish, and it was about that time that I started occasionally referring to him as Hollywood Liam Hasemans, because he always seems to be right there in the thick of it at the end and tilting things in his favour just before the finish. And that would prove to be the case as well in the title decider. So then, cars are out on circuit with 9.5 minutes left to run on the clock. We should see something like 7 or 8 flying laps out of these drivers, should they wish to do all of them. And you see they're leading out onto the circuit. Looks like Sebastian Bleekemolen was the first one out there in this session. A few returns as well visible on the entry list. One of them, delighted to say that we're seeing Yevgen Sokolovsky back again for Marco Stipp Motorsport in his number 48 car. Yevgen, a notable absence from Valencia, but great to have him back at Brands Hatch. And also Tobias Downhauer, really good to see him back in the promotion car. We'll talk about his EuroNASCAR 2 compatriot a little later on as well. Exciting to see a EuroNASCAR champion race in EuroNASCAR for the first time. Sounds like a paradox, we'll explain it later on. But very exciting grid as always. You've got the likes of adopted hometown hero Advait Yoda on the grid as well in the number 1 car from Academy Motorsport. There's lots of threads to watch as this session and this weekend progresses. First flying lap in then, the first benchmark is a 54.613 from Seb Bleekemolen. Interesting conditions they're greeted with this morning because it's not sunny. It certainly doesn't look like a picturesque summer's day. It's overcast, but as you saw at the very beginning of this broadcast, it's still over 20 degrees Celsius outside, and that does sometimes have a bit of an effect on the tyres as the session wears on. So it's not too sunny, but it is definitely still warm and muggy here at the circuit this morning. Max Lanza goes second fastest to 50.491. Still no improvements relative to Seb Bleekemolen though. Bleekemolen went faster again for 49.969 on his first proper flyer. So already in sub 50s. Of course, this session, Group 1, is for those who sit between 13th and the back of the championship standings, as well as our newcomers. And while they don't have the top drivers out there as a benchmark, what they do have, of course, is the potential of getting into the Super Pole session. The overall top 10 will advance into the Super Pole, which is just a 5-minute sprint to determine the first 5 rows of the grid. And I'm sure a few of these drivers are keen on getting that accolade, getting their weekend off to a good start by being in the top 10 Super Pole. We see the 99 car out there on track. That is Tobias Downhour. Great to see him back in what is a very handsome looking number 99 car. You may remember at the very start of 2022, he was the EuroNASCAR Pro driver in the number 50, the car that he shared with Liam Hasemans. Hasemans from Brands Hatch onwards would be racing in both Pro and EuroNASCAR too. Downhour, I think as many of us were, slightly hindered by costs in 2022, but is hoping to be involved with the championship going forward this season. And already up into 3rd place, though Downhour has lost none of his speed. And he is sharing with EuroNASCAR Club Challenge champion Gordon Barnes as well. Gordon making his EuroNASCAR 2 debut this weekend. That's going to be very exciting to see how he fares within EN2 in a little while's time when they come out for their qualifying session. 49.271, still the benchmark. The Dutchman in the Mustang, car number 69, Sebastian Bleekemolen, registering another lap. Bleekemolen had good pace on the weekend at Valencia. I don't think his lowly championship position quite justifies the car's potential and his potential coming out of the Valencia weekend. Sebastian, an absolute veteran in motorsport generally. Serial winner in Porsches, be it in Porsche Carrera Cup, be it in the Sebring 12-hour Petit Le Mans, the FIA GT Championship in a Viper, a multiple-time Clio Cup champion, 3 podiums in EuroNASCAR back in 2022, and has been running in this category since 2019. Coming across the line then is the 88 of Lanza. Does not improve on what is currently the 4th fastest time. Fabrizio Armetta has crossed the line to go 3rd fastest. We saw him a moment ago in the 55 car. Armetta got caught up in a couple of incidents at Valencia as well. He'll be looking for a cleaner weekend, of course. I think this is one of those weekends in the EuroNASCAR calendar that, particularly if you're not at the very tippy top of the order, you just have to survive it. It's very difficult with 20-plus cars going into Paddock Hill Bend, through Druids, on the opening lap and every lap that follows, to just stay out of each other's way. It's critical that you get to the finish with as little damage as possible in both races at American Speedfest. That's not to say that they ever take it easy here in the NASCAR Whelen Euro Series at the American Speedfest, at Brands Hatch, or anywhere else. But they should, in this instance, around such a tight circuit. Often doesn't prove to be the case. Much easier to say that they should be careful when you're not at the wheel of a car. Sebastian Bleekemolen, a 48.881 is the new benchmark. So getting down there into competitive times at the moment. Tobias Downhour also sub 49, a 48.979 is his current lap time. There's Yevgen Sokolovsky in the 48 car. You may remember last year this car was adorned with the Gulf colours, and then later a kind of Ukrainian homage to the Gulf colours. Yevgen Sokolovsky obviously is from Ukraine and has been proudly waving that flag in particular in the last couple of years, and even represented the nation in the FIA Motorsport Games at the very end of the 2022 season. Great to see him back in the EuroNASCAR hot seat once again. 1 minute and 40 seconds left in this session then, so time is running out for anyone to best this man, Sebastian Bleekemolen. Bleekemolen, impressive at the moment. He'll have done a good few laps of this circuit over the course of his long career. Of that, I'm certain. He's also done a good few laps in a stock car in EuroNASCAR over the last few seasons. Interesting that he doesn't go all the way to the outside in Paddock Hill bends. It can really suck you in, the gravel on the entry to Paddock Hill bend. If you're trying to get the widest berth possible going into the apex, you can end up just dipping a wheel on the gravel, and disaster follows from there. Already in, Tobias Dauenhauer. Dauenhauer into the pit lane then. So he's decided he's done all he can do in the session. I feel like a 48-second time should be enough to grant you a spot in Super Pole, but of course we do have the top 12 in the championship standings coming out onto the circuit after this session. The Group 2 qualifying session will follow this in EuroNASCAR Pro for those in the top 12 in the standings, and they could well defy me when it comes to my predictions there. Circuit is gradually being resurfaced. You can see that there's been some resurfacing at Paddock Hill not too long ago. Very fresh resurfacing here at Graham Hill Bend, and you can see quite an obvious demarker on the Cooper Straight there. Sebastian Bleekemolen coming across the line for what will be the final time. Is this going to be an improvement? Will he finish the lap? He will finish the lap. Will he improve? A 48.881 looks like it's going to be enough to take this session anyway. And that time was not an improvement, but it was just a few hundredths off. So Sebastian Bleekemolen proving that that lap was not a fluke. He can do 48.8. I suspect a 48.8 is enough to get him into the top 10 shootout. I would think Tobias Dauenhauer on a 48.9 could be there as well. Lambert, third fastest. Oh, well, hold on a second. Fabrizio Armetta, who has had a couple of lap times deleted for track limits, he's just gone faster than Dauenhauer, a 48.909 for Fabrizio Armetta. Armetta, the leading challenger within this grid, challenger trophy runner. And Armetta with a very good lap time there, I must say. 48.909 is a really solid effort. And potentially our top three in this Group 1 session could make their way into Super Pole, but their hopes, everyone who's currently on circuit, everyone's hopes are now in the hands of our championship top 12s, largely the heavy hitters of the EuroNASCAR Pro category, who'll be out on circuit momentarily. But Sebastian Bleekemolen, with the first competitive success of the day, taking the Group 1 session, doesn't mean anything really for his grid slot. He's got to wait to find out whether he's in Super Pole before he can even consider where he might be in the standings. Outside of the Super Pole, everyone else, 11th down, will be determined their grid slots by, well, simply by combining the times from the two sessions and seeing where everyone else ends up. So until he's confirmed in Super Pole, we're not going to know the lay of the land for Sebastian Bleekemolen. I suspect, at the very least, Bleekemolen will make it into Super Pole. But we'll have to wait and see. I could be being presumptuous, because we do have some incredible drivers about to take to the circuit. Vittorio Garelli in the 72, the sister car to Sebastian Bleekemolen in the Team Bleekemolen stable. He was the pace setter among the NASCAR Whelen Euro Series contingent on Friday here at Brands Hatch. So the former AutoGP Junior Single-Seater Champion, GT Racing Veteran and 2020 EuroNASCAR 2 Champion. He will be aiming to take that form from Friday into the qualifying session. Really got the impression from Valencia that Garelli had landed on his feet at his new team. Granted, he's currently only 10th in the standings, but I think Lady Luck has a lot to answer for in that regard. He also got his first top 5 of the year at Valencia, but he also had a little bit of a hiccup. He'll be looking to bounce back from that. So it will be the turn of Group 2 to head out there onto the circuit in just a moment. EuroNASCAR Pro Group 2, the top 12 in the standings, making their way out now, as you can see, towards pit exit. You see there some of the new liveries. If you're tuning in for the first time this year, if you weren't with us for Valencia, you'll note that quite a few of the liveries have evolved somewhat. Certainly, Mark Goossens is in a more colourful outfit than he was last year. I believe they refer to that as the Pop Arts livery down at the Cal Racing Camp. And Gianmarco Ercoli's car is significantly less pink than it was last year, but it's just as quick. The number 54 machine of Gianmarco Ercoli getting ready. And of course, this session will play host to Gianmarco Ercoli. It'll also play host to Liam Hasemans. And if you were watching last time at Valencia, you'll know that things got a little bit heated between Ercoli and Hasemans. Now, my understanding is that the very first opportunity, Liam Hasemans went to Gianmarco Ercoli after a collision at turn 2 and turn 3 between the pair of them. Hasemans went and held his hands up and said, "Look, I'm sorry, should have backed out of it." Hasemans was on the outside of the corner, tried to hold on, and while Gianmarco Ercoli accepted his apology, you get the feeling that things are still a little bit tense there, particularly if they find themselves side by side again this weekend. You may remember that last year Gianmarco Ercoli and Alan Day were side by side between Druids and Graham Hill Bend, and that didn't end brilliantly, particularly for Gianmarco. So he'll be hoping that history doesn't repeat itself. Anthony Kumpen, he's cut a frustrated figure at American Speedfest in recent times, hasn't been driving. This time, though, he's back in the seat that he wants. The number 24, the Belgian liveried car, heads out first among our runners. Anthony Kumpen making his return this year. Great to see Anthony back at the wheel. And a two-time champion in what is now EuroNASCAR Pro, formerly Elite 1. He took that title with just one win in the 2014 season. Part of a real generational family of talents in Belgium. His father, a rallycross racer, his cousin Sophie, a really talented karter, as well as mother to one Max Verstappen. And of course, Anthony's record, if you're familiar with GT racing in Belgium or internationally, you'll know that Kumpen has had a lot of success in Vipers, in Corvettes, very much a lover of Americana, American racing cars. So EuroNASCAR has always made perfect sense as a fit for Anthony Kumpen, that much is for certain. So then, Group 2 now head out onto the circuit, and their times are being added to the existing times from Group 1. Of course, the top 10 from this session, or rather the top 10 across both sessions, will then go into the 5-minute Super Pole. So we'll see when those drivers, or these drivers, start infiltrating that top 10 and potentially moving themselves into Super Pole. There is Vittorio Garelli, the Friday pace setter. He makes his way around Clark Curve and Clearways to complete the lap here at the Brands Hatch Indy Circuit. This should be a decent benchmark. Ercoli has gone 9th fastest, Garelli only 10th fastest for now. They're still getting heat through the carcass of this Heusier tyre. The Heusier tyres are very durable. And sometimes the trade-off there is that it takes a couple of laps to properly get the heat through them. We'll see when these times start coming down. On form, you would certainly expect this to be the quicker of the two sessions. Hence, I was thinking the top 3 or 4 at best would be a lockout or a lock-in for the Super Pole session for Group 1. These are our top 12 in the standings, so in theory, you'd expect the Super Pole session to largely consist of them. But I could be wildly wrong about that. Temperatures change as well. That's a big factor. The temperatures change, the track condition changes. You would think that with parts of this circuit being newly resurfaced, the later you're out there, the better, which would also be a theory that lends itself to success for these Group 2 runners. But racing is often not that academic. We'll have to wait and see whether any of this proves to hold any weight whatsoever. Gianmarco Ercoli around the last corner. Mark Goossens just ahead of him as well. Let's see what times they set. Fred Gavillon has just gone third fastest across both groups, while Gianmarco Ercoli has set the fastest time. He's bested the Group 1 driver, Sebastian Blekemolen, at 48.657 is our fastest time of the morning thus far. So Gianmarco Ercoli, one would have to imagine he's a lock-in for Super Pole with that lap time. You might well see a few drivers just set 1 or 2 quick laps here and then wait to preserve the car, preserve the rubber, whatever other justification they need. Of course, Vladimir Ostiotzis will be keen to continue his hot run of form across both disciplines of the EuroNASCAR paddock. The speedy Cypriot driver who still only has race wins in EuroNASCAR 2 at the circuit Ricardo Tormo. How he'd like to get a win at a different circuit. If he can do that within EuroNASCAR Pro, then he also gets his first win in the Pro classification. I know that would mean a lot to him. There's our championship leading car, the number 64 of Lucas Lasser. He said after Valencia, he came out of it as championship leader, and he said, you know, I'm not going to keep going. If I can give this seat to someone else and make a profit as team owner, that's exactly what I'm going to do. Now, I don't know whether he had people knocking on the door that he turned down, but part of me thinks that he he got home, looked at the standings on Wednesday night and went, I am leading the championship, aren't I? That looks real now. And whether or not that was the decision that led him back into the seat, we're delighted to see Lucas Lasser back once again here at Brands Hatch. Vittorio Garelli is our current standing topper, a 48.592 for Garelli in the 72. Gianmarco Ercoli, second fastest at the moment, and interestingly both of them are already in the pits. So I think, as I was alluding to, some of the drivers deciding to keep their powder a little bit dry, save it for Super Pole once they feel assured that Super Pole is where they will be. Giorgio Maggi, he's suffered a little bit with the 18 car, it must be said, at Valencia. Still in the top 12 in the standings, but he could have been much further up than he is if things had gone his way. He currently sits a joint 7th in the standings, along with Ercoli and Del So. And Giorgio Maggi had a couple of hiccups with the car at the circuit Ricardo Tormo, which he's hoping will be rectified this time out. Anthony Kumpen has returned his car to the pit lane, so Kumpen has headed toward the pit lane, and with 2 minutes and 10 seconds left to run, once you're in the pits, one has to assume you're staying in the pits. But Amiro Siortzis looks like he should be secure to get into the Super Pole session as well. He's 5th fastest at the moment, and judging by that line out of Clark Curve and Clearways, I think he's on for another fast lap here. Let's see what the time is. It is an improvement. He goes to third fastest across both groups of 48.697. The fastest of our runners from the Group 1 session that started off our broadcast is still, of course, Sebastian Bleekemolen. He's sixth fastest currently. As it stands, Bleekemolen, Armetta and Downhauer would be our only three representatives from Group 1 in the Super Pole session. So somewhat as I expected, those three's lap times going under 49 seconds. That looked like it could be enough, although in the case of Downhauer, he's less than a tenth away from losing out on Super Pole. Martin Dubek currently 11th fastest. Dubek will be very keen on getting a quicker lap on the board to secure his place in the runoff for pole position. We see the number 14 car here, some way down the sheet at the moment, I believe. Actually, no, all the way up in 12th. I do Ulysse Delso a little bit of an injustice there. Delso also knocking on the door of Super Pole if he can get a faster time in. Delso out of Graham Hill Bend then, down the Cooper Straight and into Surtees. Great overtaking opportunity in these stock cars. The run through Surtees and Clark Curve, particularly because a little bit of knocking on the door or indeed knocking on the bumper can be expected occasionally, and those kind of overtakes can certainly be achieved in that particular section of the circuit. Delso did not improve that time by. He's got one more opportunity to set a flying lap. Everybody else now, including Delso, on their final flying lap. So it's the last opportunity for anyone to try and get into the top 10 in the session. Giorgio Maggi has just got up to a 48.749, so that should secure him in sixth position. He should make it into the top 10 Super Pole. Martin Dubek has just gone fifth fastest as well, a 48.734. That pushes Downhauer out of the top 10 Super Pole session. Downhauer from Group 1, it's currently set to be 11th on the grid, but let's see what's going on with the car that was about to cross the line of Delso. Does not improve. Delso does not improve. So Ulysse Delso misses out on Super Pole. Is there anyone else left that could challenge? There are a few drivers still waiting to cross the line. Before we act too presumptuous, let's see if there are any more improvements to be had. I think we're at a point where everyone who set a time is done. Yes, I think that is the case. So Vittorio Gorelli, the pace setter in this session, as he was in free practice, he'll be in Super Pole. Of course, the top 10 order doesn't really matter much coming into Super Pole, but the top 10 order is Gorelli, Coley, Siortzis in the number 5, Liam Hasemans in the 50, Martin Dubek in number 7 on his very last flying lap. Giorgio Maggi as well, a late improvement, sixth fastest for him. Frederic Gabillon and Anthony Kumpen, the old rivals, 7th and 8th. Sebastian Bleekemolen, the first of just two Group 1 drivers to make it into the Super Pole session, and Fabrizio Armetta rounding out the top 10. So those 10 will all move on now into a 5-minute Super Pole session. And the rest of our grid has now got their slots determined. Tobias Downhauer will start in 11th place ahead of Lucas Lasser in the 64 in 12th when we go racing later on this afternoon. Mark Goossens and Ulysse Delso make a very competitive row number 7. Lambert in the 40 and Riccardo Romagnoli in the 65 on row 8 later on. Max Lanza and Thomas Grisonis 17th and 18th. Toffel and Dioda 19th and 20th. Christoph Lenz in 21st. Dombrovski 22nd. Atiennes 23rd. Yevgen Sokolovsky on his return down in 24th. And at the back of the EuroNASCAR Pro grid when we go racing will be Elena Leubniger in the 94 car. But the question now remains, what of the top 10? Well, we know the participants, we don't know the order. The 5-minute Super Pole session will be up momentarily here to determine the top 10 on the grid. Vittorio Garelli and Gianmarco Ercoli will be looking to continue that run of pace that they showed in that session, particularly Garelli, who was the only driver to go under a 48.6, a 48.592 was Vittorio Garelli's fastest time in that 72 car that you can see in the centre of shot. He was into the pits fairly sharplish after a couple of quick laps. The same went for Ercoli. Siortis was out there for pretty much the entire session. In fact, he was out there for the entire session. He did take the checkered flag at the end of his last flying lap. Anthony Kumpen, he kept his powder dry. He was in after about 6 minutes of the session. Will that make a salient difference by the end of this 5-minute Super Pole? Might well make a difference by the end of the weekend. Because, of course, the tyres that they're on now are the tyres that they'll still have bolted to the car on Sunday afternoon, given everything goes well. Of course, if there is something unavoidable like a puncture, then that changes. But you rather get the impression that this circuit in particular is one where you just want to save a little bit of Hoosier rubber towards the end. So then green flag flies. The Super Pole session begins in earnest. 5 minutes for these drivers to set the best time they possibly can. Not a lot of time to play with at all, but of course, given this is the shortest circuit on the calendar, they do get a few attempts. They do get a few flying laps in before the end of the 5 minutes. I think they will largely get at least 4 flying laps. I'm not sure anyone other than maybe Garelli and Kumpen, the first two out there, will get themselves, or Garelli and Ercoli, I should say. I don't think anyone other than Garelli and Ercoli has much of a chance of getting the 5th flying lap in. So 48.5 is the benchmark out of the 2 group sessions. Let's see if anyone can best that in this Super Pole. Often, the Super Pole time isn't quite as quick as what we see in the qualifying session prior. I think that's purely because less time and slightly less fresh rubber. But if anyone is going to find more speed around this Brands Hatch Indy Circuit, you'd rather suggest it could be Vittorio Garelli, who has been really impressive so far this weekend. Garelli heading towards Clark Curve and Clearways, with Gianmarco Ercoli just behind. Let's see what the 72 car can do on the first flying lap. He didn't register as having done a lap, but he should have done. A 48.999 is the time for Garelli. Ercoli, though, goes faster. A 48.756 for Gianmarco Ercoli. Liam Hazemans, he goes second fastest. A 48.819. So the young Hazemans, at the site of his first EuroNASCAR win, he's starting to lay his chips on the table. He, of course, only did the bare minimum number of flying laps as well in the Group 2 session a few moments ago. The likes of Sebastian Blake-Molen and Fabrizio Armetta, who qualified through Group 1, they've had a little bit more time to cool down, but also their tyres have had a little bit more time to cool down, and that may not be beneficial. Garelli goes top, but only briefly. Garelli set a 48.702. Gianmarco Ercoli immediately responds with a 48.612. Anything you could do, I can do better, he says. Except they're not Victorian English chimney sweeps, they're Italian racing drivers. Liam Hazemans goes second fastest at 48.701, beating Garelli's time by, 1/1000th of a second. 400ths of a second back from them is Anthony Kumpen. He's just gone to 4th fastest with a 48.742. Gianmarco Ercoli, then the number 54 car that we watch on screen, currently fastest. Still 1 minute and 40 seconds left to go, though. Gorelli improves again, a 48.597. And Gianmarco Ercoli has lowered the bar to previously unseen levels, a 48.411 from Gianmarco Ercoli. Beat that, he says. 48.411 for Gianmarco Ercoli. That could well be our pole time. Kumpen 48.562. He goes third fastest, ahead of Vittorio Gorelli. There's Liam Hasemans, currently second fastest, 48.531, just over a tenth back from our provisional pole sitter, Gianmarco Ercoli. Now let's see if Hasemans can improve this time by. Ercoli's time has not improved on the previous tour. Let's see if Hasemans can get closer to the benchmark. He does indeed, a 48.459 for Liam Hasemans. Second fastest and just about half a tenth off of Gianmarco Ercoli. The entirety of this Super Pole order is covered by just over half a second. Everyone except for Martin Dubeck in 10th is within that half-second barrier. Liam Hasemans, the junior class runner, one of 3 juniors in this session, along with Giorgio Maggi and Vladimir Osiortsis. But Hasemans this year, I think, after his EuroNASCAR 2 title win, has his eyes set on overall standings glory. No improvement this time by from Ercoli. He's taken the checkered flag, and no improvement either from Liam Hasemans. So it's going to be down to Kumpen, Gorelli, to see whether or not we have a different provisional pole sitter. It looks to me as if Gianmarco Ercoli has done enough. Anthony Kumpen does not improve on his final time. But what about Vittorio Gorelli? Where is that number 72 car? Should be coming down the main straight now, in theory. Do we see a last improvement from the only driver that got an extra flying lap in? I don't think Gorelli has actually done another flyer by the seams of it. He has done another flyer, and he does go third fastest. Vittorio Gorelli, at the very last moment of the session, sets a 48.545 to go third fastest. Not enough to break the front row, but still a very impressive lap time. This man, Gianmarco Ercoli, though, is going to be our first pole sitter of the weekend. Of course, EuroNASCAR 2 qualifying still to come here in this morning broadcast. But Gianmarco Ercoli, exemplary once again here at the Brands Hatch Indy Circuit. He's good round here. We've seen that before, and he's further laid evidence of that. He's further shown that he is a championship contender this year. He's just got to hope for better fortune, and he'll be looking to try and get some wins on the board in this round. We'll have to see whether or not he can do so, but he's certainly taken the first step towards glory. We'll hear from him with the intrepid pit reporter Andre Viegold in just a few moments' time. Gianmarco Ercoli, though, will be pretty happy with that, I'm sure. But what an interesting front row we've got after all of the drama on Sunday at Valencia. The collision between Ercoli and Hasemans. They've only gone and parked next to each other on the grid. That could be entertaining. To Paddock Hill Bend later on this afternoon, side by side with Vittorio Gorelli and Anthony Kumpen as the leaders of the charging pack behind. I think that's a good recipe for a motor race. Giorgio Maggi, obviously 5th fastest. Sebastian Blakemolen, 6th fastest. So good job from Blakemolen. Vladimir Osiortsis, not quite on the same one-lap form in EuroNASCAR Pro as we saw last time out in Valencia. A 48.815 for Osiortsis. Fabrizio Armetta, the only challenger in Superpole. He's 8th fastest ahead of Frederic Gabillon and Martin Dubeck. That is our top 10 for the race to come later on, at least provisionally. believe in a few moments' time we will get the chance to head down pitward and hear from some of the drivers ahead of the EuroNASCAR 2 session. We'll get to hear from a couple of our EuroNASCAR Pro competitors. But what a session that was. Exciting stuff. Now, a reminder, the format's slightly different once we get to EuroNASCAR 2 in a few moments. That will be just the 2 group sessions. There won't be any Super Pole, just the 2 group sessions. So it will be effectively a 20-minute qualifying but split in twain. And it should be an exciting time once again. Will the Group 2 runners once again dominate, or will it be a little bit more equilateral across the grid? We'll have to wait and see. There's the big pickup truck, the passenger pickup. Wasn't brave enough to do that last year. Don't think I'll be brave enough to do it this year as well. Maybe 2024. And this is nice to see. Liam Hazeman's Gianmarco Ercoli, they're coming down. They're having a nice chat. Now, I know the chats they had at Valencia weren't quite as nice, but you know what? They look quite jolly at the moment. That's positive to see. The cars are down there on the spectator banks, and I think Andre Vigold is in a position where he's ready to have a chat with our drivers. Sure enough, here he is with our pole sitter.
Thank you so much, Adam. I'm here with Gianmarco Ercoli, the pole sitter in EuroNASCAR Pro at Brands Hatch. Amazing lap, right?
Yeah, good morning. So it's a big pleasure for me stay in the pole position this circuit. It's important to improve my history in this track. I'm happy of the work of the job of the team, because yesterday we stay always in P4, P5. Yesterday night we changed the setup and now improve a very good pole position this morning.
For the race, we see a lot of clouds coming. Maybe there will be rain, maybe there will be sun. What do you prefer, dry track or wet track?
I prefer pool racing. So always all yards in this circuit, a difficult battle for the win. So I remember a good win in 2018 with a good battle with Mark and Alonde. So I think it's difficult. I work for arrive to the second part of the race with a good speed, and after his important start in pole position, and in all laps by laps, go fast for try to win. It's impossible the safety car, so the handling of the tires is most important.
Thank you so much. Congratulations. One side note, in 2018 you became the first EuroNASCAR 2 champion to win a EuroNASCAR Pro race. You got the crown. Is that the goal again, to be the king of Brands Hatch?
Yeah, I have a good feeling with this track, and I think it's possible to have a good race.
All right, thank you so much. And maybe we get some weather updates by Adam.
No one said meteorology was part of the agreement. Certainly still dry conditions at the moment, but we could see some weather hitting later on in the day. My understanding is that it should stay dry today, just cloudy is my understanding. And that does seem to be what the radar suggests as well. Sunday, on the other hand, Sunday could be different. As it stands, by the time we get to the circuit on Sunday morning, we might have a bit of rain, and that may not subside for the rest of the day. It's officially listed as showers rather than actual rain storm, so that could be interesting. Let's go to Liam Hazeman's.
Thank you so much for the weather update. And now here with Liam Hazeman. It was a solid lap right now.
Yeah, definitely. It was solid because, well, you know, in Brands Hatch, because it's such a short track, because we race on the Indy Circuit. So yeah, it's always like the differences are so close. But yeah, I really thought I was gonna have it this time, but again, yeah, Jimmy took it. I think it was 300ths of a second again. So yeah, as you know, the gap in EuroNASCAR was always so close to each other. But yeah, I tried my best, but we tried to make it up in the race again. Huh?
I'm not a race car driver. I drove this circuit in simulations a lot, and it seems like a roller coaster. Just describe what is the magic behind this Indy circuit.
Yeah, no, exactly. As you couldn't describe it better. It's really a roller coaster circuit, that's for sure. Definitely also with the first corner, you just come blind, and then you feel like all the compression of the car that really puts you full down into your seat. But yeah, no, it's really a roller coaster of track. But I think it's also the most enjoyable because it's so going uphill, downhill. So I think if you ask any driver, they will say this is one of the most fun tracks to drive. And also with the fans we have, of course, because it's one of the biggest races of EuroNASCAR. So this also makes it like the magic of EuroNASCAR here in Brands Hatch, definitely.
I don't know when your brother Loris Hazemans was racing and you were not the race car driver in EuroNASCAR. Have you taken part in the event and were you able to see the show and the attractions there?
Yeah, no, definitely. Well, as you said, so yeah, my brother raced here, of course, in the past years. I mean, I was just a spectator. I remember I had like this huge hair, still have, but a bit shorter. But no, yeah, definitely. I was always like in the grandstand or always walking around, and also all the attractions we have. Also this year, for example, we got the 24-hour Le Mans NASCAR car that really drove the 24 hours of Le Mans for the ones who watched it. And yeah, so I mean, we have so much attraction and everything going on here. So yeah, no, it's always enjoyable to come here, definitely.
All right, thank you so much. Congratulations, and we go back to Adam.
That's an enticing sight, isn't it? Did you see that too? I saw that. The incredible historic cars heading out onto the circuit shortly, but not before EuroNASCAR 2 heads out for their qualifying session. That was the grid for Bernie's V8s, one of the support grids this weekend at the American Speed Fest. It's not just EuroNASCAR. The entire race program is very much US-centric, very much rooted in Americana. And that goes for all of our attractions as well. And a great point raised by Liam Hazemans as well. We do have the Garage 56 NASCAR as raced just 7 days ago at the Le Mans 24 Hours here this weekend on display for the fans at Brands Hatch. I'm sure there'll be more than a few fans and a few car clubs making it a two-foot, doing the Le Mans 24 Hours one week and American Speed Fest the next, with a little help from our friends at the Eurotunnel, of course. So then, the EuroNASCAR 2 Group 1 session is out there on circuit now. This is the session for those outside of the top 12 in the championship standings. As we saw in the previous session, though, we can't rule out any of these drivers making it into the overall top 10. Of course, there is no Super Pole in this session, or in this category. In EuroNASCAR 2, there is no Super Pole. But both of the classifications will be combined to determine the grid for EuroNASCAR 2. So the Group 1 and Group 2 times will be merged together on one timing sheet, and that will determine our grid. So then, you see there the 69 car. That is the familiar face of Melvin de Groot back into EuroNASCAR this weekend. Good to see Melvin with us. We'll see that 99 car out there again that was in the hands of Tobias Downhauer in the Group 1 session in EuroNASCAR Pro, now in the hands of Gordon Barnes. Great to see Gordon Barnes making his debut. He's one of a couple of drivers in EuroNASCAR 2 driving with a Union Jack, the British flag, alongside his name. And Gordon Barnes, no stranger to EuroNASCAR, no stranger to Brands Hatch either. He is a two-time champ in the Club Challenge, which runs on Fridays at EuroNASCAR weekends. Now, that's not a racing series, that's effectively a regularity test taken at speed. It's all about consistency across an assigned number of laps. And Gordon Barnes has proven to be a bit of a maestro at that in the last few years. He now has his opportunity to go racing in EuroNASCAR 2, and we're very excited to see what Gordon Barnes can do from the seat of the 99 promotion car. The other British hopeful was the driver of the number 48 car, the Marco Stitt Motorsport car, the GT Omega backed entry of Jack Davidson. Davidson, who certainly got in the thick of it at the Valencia NASCAR Fest. And the young Brit will be keen to use some of that track knowledge. He's a long-time Mini Challenge racer. He will have some experience around this circuit, albeit in a very different car. There is Gordon Barnes then in the 99 with Melvin de Groot alongside, or rather just behind, I should say. I understand that Gordon certainly getting a bit of a hero's welcome this weekend. A lot of people happy to see him racing. I know he had Cammy from Go for the Gap here yesterday. I think she'll be present all weekend long, handing out hero cards to fans and spectators. So I'm sure a few people will be invested in Gordon Barnes's progress on his first racing weekend. So then lap times coming in thick and fast in this 10-minute session. Our current benchmark is Melvin de Groot on a 50.166, so a couple of seconds back from the times we saw in the top end of the EuroNASCAR Pro session. I think we'll see a few sub-50s before the end of this session. Another interesting addition to this weekend's grid. Our only American driver across both of the classes, that is Nicholas Strickler in the 94 Racing Fuel Motorsport entry. I'm sure Nicholas will be keen to put the American in American Speedfest this weekend. Of course, had guest drivers here at Speedfest and just in general in EuroNASCAR. Strickler, who's just 23 from Danville, California. He'll be looking to try and move up the ranks here this weekend. Of course, we have seen EuroNASCAR form a pathway back to America in the likes of the trucks and the Xfinity series, so perhaps that is Strickler's end game here. Strickler has done some Legends Oval racing. It's quite a step up in capacity in terms of engine and size in terms of the car in the NASCAR Whelen Euro Series. The sub-50 lap times have indeed started coming. 49.231 for Melvin de Groot. Also, of course, a Legends class runner. Everyone in this session is either a Legends or rookie class runner, as far as I can tell. Melvin de Groot currently the pace setter in the 6019 Blake Molan car. Here's the number 40 of Power and the number 1, that being Max Mason. Good to see Mason putting in a good time there. He's gone 6th fastest. The Australian rookie, I think the flag on screen is Austrian, but obviously he's Australian, so I'm sure that flag will look bluer by the time we go racing. But Max Mason from the land down under. There's number 34 car of Thomas Toffel. Thomas Toffel, I think I should say. And oh, goodness me, that was a bit sideways at Druids Bend. Thomas currently 3rd fastest, the Swiss driver. Thomas Toffel for Race Art Technology. One of the few cars from them, just 2 cars in EuroNASCAR 2. Marco Stitt Motorsport, Team Blake Molan, Racing Fuel, the Club Motorsport, Speedhouse, Double V, EK Car Sports. I don't think they're actually running 24 car. They shouldn't be running 24 car in EuroNASCAR 2. RDB Competition, Academy, Hendricks, plenty of exciting teams. Cal Racing, Remotion. A lot of these teams have been running EuroNASCAR 2 for a long time, EuroNASCAR in general for a long time. Sometimes a bit of a rotating door of drivers. You always want to pick an experienced team to help you get into the groove of EuroNASCAR as quickly as possible. Melvin de Groot in the 69 car, currently fastest. This is the sister entry of Mikael Bleekemolen, ex-Grand Prix racer, who even though he picked the number attributed to his age last year, I think he is now 73, if memory serves me correctly. Mikael Bleekemolen, the father of Sebastian, and also the rest of the Bleekemolen racing clan. Jeroen, of course, brother to Sebastian. He's currently third fastest in this session on a 49.880. Tefel in the 34 is second fastest at this stage. Melvin de Groot, far and away the fastest, a 49.231 is his best time of the session so far. 0.48 clear, almost half a second clear of everyone else in the session. That could be enough to get him onto the first couple of rows by the time we go racing later on this afternoon. Of course, there's another group to come, the Group 2 session with the top 12 in the championship standings. You'd expect, once again, you'd expect a majority of the top 10 to come from that session. But I think Melvin de Groot, who was absent from Valencia, is someone we can expect to be up there in the top 10 by the time this session closes. He's on his final lap then. The checkered flag is now waving at the start-finish line, so everybody is on their final lap of this Group 1 session. And a little bit of a lock-up there between Surtees and Clark for Melvin de Groot, who winds the car up one last time for a run down the Brabham Straight. And does he improve on his final outing? Doesn't appear so. But he doesn't need to improve. He has the current provisional pole position. Will that last through the Group 2 session? Well, one would suggest that potentially some of those who made the EuroNASCAR Pro Super Pole, the likes of Martin Dubek, the likes of Vladimiros Tsiotsis, may have a thing or two to say. We'll have to wait and see. So then, as everyone has now either crossed the line or returned to the pits, it's Melvin de Groot who has taken that session ahead of the number 34 in the hands of Thomas Tefel. Mikael Bleekemolen, third fastest in the 72, as we get a bit of a replay. And what are we seeing here? This is the number 1 car having a big moment in the hands of Max Mason. The Aussie went full send, and the car sent him into a spin. He'll be hoping for better fortune when we go racing. But he will line up 7th. 4th behind Bleekemolen is the number 64 car in the hands of Igor Securo, the rookie runner. Neumann in the 55 is 5th fastest, so Victor Neumann with a good showing there. 6th fastest is the Belgian racer in the number 56, Sven van Leer. 7th fastest is the aforementioned Max Mason, ahead of Strickler in the 94, Gordon Barnes in the 99, and the number 40 of Hauer and Ariana Casoli rounding out the competitors in that session. So we will now have a momentary pause, but it won't be long at all before the Group 2 cars head out onto the circuit. Group 2 for the top 12 in the current championship standings. and getting some good information from down in the pits regarding Jack Davidson, who will be out in Group 2. You see there the GT Omega car. We've already seen that, of course, out in EuroNASCAR Pro with Yevgen Sokolovsky. But Davidson had a crash in free practice, and they were still working on that car in the garage at 4 a.m. We understand the car was feeling good in the hand of Yevgen, so hopefully it's okay for Jack Davidson. But the team put in a Herculean effort to get that car back out on circuit, and a brilliant job from everyone involved to get the car ready to go. That is very much the spirit of EuroNASCAR. If we've still got everything pointed in the right direction and we've got enough spares to fix the car, then we'll get it out there. If we don't have enough spares to fix the car, we'll speak to our neighbour in the next garage. They usually will lend you some of their spares, and you'll get back out there one way or the other. Very much a community spirit, very exciting racing, but also a very amicable paddock environment. Things about to get a bit less amicable, though, on circuit for the next few minutes, because it's time for what will probably end up being largely the session responsible for our first few rows of the grid. The top 12 in the EuroNASCAR 2 Championship about to head out onto the circuit, including current points leader Vladimiros Siotzis, who will be looking to get himself onto that front row. He'll be looking to get a third consecutive pole position of the EuroNASCAR 2 season in that number 5 car going through shot at the moment. 2 wins, 2 poles last time out at the Circuit Ricardo Tormo. Of course, he took his first ever EuroNASCAR 2 win at the Circuit Ricardo Tormo, the season opener last year. He hasn't had a win, or he never had a win again in the 2022 season. So he's still yet to win anywhere other than the Circuit Ricardo Tormo. Now that is his favourite, or at least his most successful circuit on the calendar. But he'll be looking to get something done here at Brands Hatch this weekend, and no better way to start than by chucking that number 5 car on pole position. I'm making it sound very easy, but he's got some serious competition. Alberto Nasca, who was the pace setter here on Friday in free practice. He will be chief among the competition. The likes of Paul Dufresne and Gil Linster, who are currently 3rd and 4th in the standings. Martin Dubek, who of course was just in the EuroNASCAR Pro shootout. Dubek actually fared a lot better in EuroNASCAR Pro than EuroNASCAR 2, rather paradoxically, at the Circuit Ricardo Tormo. So he'll be looking to bounce back. I think we're yet to see the best out of the likes of Jack Davidson as well. Obviously that car has just been repaired, so whether or not it's completely fighting fit, I think Davidson in the car will get an indication. There you see the number 3 of Paul Dufresne. Dufresne moving into the RDV fold this year, and really impressive so far. Really came into his own at the Valencia weekend. Got some podiums under his belt. The season looking a lot better for Dufresne at this stage of the year. Dufresne will be the first to set a flying lap. In reality, the first flying laps are often just a second warm-up lap. It might give us some idea of what to expect. Dufresne already up into 8th place on 51.138 then. Suspect there's a lot more to come. He's still about 2 seconds off of Melvin de Groot's current provisional pole time. A reminder, if you weren't here at the start, this session is effectively bolted on to the results of the Group 1 session that was just out there on circuit. The 2 groups, their results merged to form the grid for the EuroNASCAR 2 race later on this afternoon. Of a bounce there at the apex for the driver of the 54 there. It's a little bit hairy looking. Crossing the line, and Alberto Nasca going 7th fastest. NASCAR, of course, second in the championship at the moment and looking to try and get that EuroNASCAR 2 title. Was runner-up last year after leading a lion's share of the championship. Had a great dice with Liam Hazelmans. See how this 2023 EuroNASCAR 2 season pays off for the Italian YouTube sensation. I know a lot of you are cheering on Alberto Nasca. Let's see what his time is this time. A 49.339 puts him 3rd fastest. And we have a new provisional pole sitter, Gil Linster, in that number 50 car, just ahead of Alberto Nasca on the road. Gil Linster, a 49.209, is our new provisional pole. So he's beaten Melvin de Groot. Linster, certainly one of the primary challengers to NASCAR this year. NASCAR, as last year's runner-up, is the highest ranking driver from 2022's EuroNASCAR 2 grid, of course, since Liam Hazelmans is not in EuroNASCAR 2 this year. Martin Dubek, the 2021 champion, is, of course, on the grid. He's currently 5th fastest, so he's finding some time as well. Paul Dufresne in the number 3 car, a 48.814. He's the first of the EuroNASCAR 2 drivers to go under 49 seconds. And Alberto Nasca has just pulled the same trick as well, a 48.828. There is Dufresne, but he is no longer our provisional pole sitter because Vladimiros Diortsis has just crossed the line, a 48.807. Diortsis, staking his claim on the pole position. But Gil Linster rather staked his claim on the rear bumper of Paul Dufresne there. And Dufresne now has to find first gear, find a gap, and get that car spun back around. Of course, while this is happening, we've got yellow flags out at Clark Curve. Is that a damaged-looking number 50? Is that a bit skew with? Yes, it is! Oh my goodness, the bonnet is up. I thought it was the bonnet up. I didn't want to say because I thought I might be wrong, but yes, the cooling is significantly improved on the number 50 car. The visibility has been significantly hindered. That car needs to go to the pits right now. Gil Linster making contact with the back of Paul Dufresne, who has recovered now. He's no longer there. And Linster, thankfully, common sense prevailing. He did a remarkable job on that lap, I must say. There must be a little bit of visibility to be had under the bonnet. There must be a little peephole that he can see through at the bottom of the windscreen, but that is remarkable. Here's how this all happened then. Dufresne backing off to try and set himself up for a fast lap, and then the bonnet wasn't up yet on the number 50 car. I think the bonnet eventually went up. Down the Bradland straight towards Paddock Hill Bend. Now, Vladimiros Diortsis is listed as missing on our timing screen. He set his 48.807 a good couple of minutes ago. And since then, Diortsis hasn't registered another lap time, and he's gone missing, according to the timing screen. Now, I haven't seen Diortsis around the circuit. I'm looking out now as we follow the 66 car. Just maybe get some slightly wider shots and see whether we can see the number 5 anywhere. But per the timing screens, the Diortsis is somewhere that's neither the pit lane nor the racing circuit. Despite that, he has still set the pole position as it stands. As we saw Thomas Dombrowski in the 66 really fighting his Chevy Camaro. Diortsis is still our pole sitter, but is listed missing. Whether or not he's in the garage or otherwise, I'm not sure. There's usually a separate symbol for the garage, and I'm just hearing Vladimir Tsiortsis is down at Druids. I think he may be in the gravel at Druids. I didn't see him there. If you've seen it on screen, I do apologise, but I didn't spot the car in the gravel. But apparently at Druids Bend, that's where you find Vladimir Tsiortsis. And we now see Alberto Nasca at the top of the pile. Alberto Nasca, a 48.665, is currently fastest in the session. So Tsiortsis no longer on provisional pole here as Martin Dubek really took a flying run through Paddock Hill Bend, looking for that number 5 car and not seeing it anywhere on that shot, but I'm reliably informed that that's where Tsiortsis is. Alberto Nasca currently our provisional pole sitter then. Tsiortsis will be furious. Just for the car, just for Vladimir Tsiortsis. So he's down between Druids and Graham Hill Bend. We got a flash look at that number 5 car in that last shot. So Tsiortsis between Druids and Graham Hill. Right after his fastest flying lap, the car came to a halt then, and Alberto Nasca is taking the opportunity to set another fast lap. Can he best his own provisional pole time of 48.665? Not quite, 48.855 on that occasion, but right now he doesn't need to improve. Nasca is well on his way to potentially a pole position here in EuroNASCAR 2. Great dice last year here. Ended up losing out in NASCAR overtime to Liam Hazemans. And what was Hazemans' first win in EuroNASCAR 2. Paul Dufresne has just gone top. Dufresne with a 48.621. I rather thought that Nasca was home free in provisional pole, but that's not the case because Paul Dufresne has gone top. Dufresne on a 48.621. Nasca crosses the line and does not improve, so Paul Dufresne is currently our provisional pole sitter. It's worth noting Gil Linster's about to cross the line in the number 50 car. His bonnet is back down, his pace is improving, except not enough. 49.36. He doesn't actually set a personal best on his last lap time. He will remain 6th, at least provisionally. Of course, he could fall down the order, but Paul Dufresne looks set for pole position here in the number 3 Ford Mustang. To be confirmed, of course. There's still cars running. Martin Dubek is still out there. Will he improve on his final lap time? A 48.746 is his current best, but he's actually got into pit lane, so he will not complete his final flying lap. And I think just about everyone who is likely to challenge has crossed the line already. I think we're safe to say that Paul Dufresne will be our pole sitter in EuroNASCAR 2. On the last gasp, the final flying lap of his session, Paul Dufresne has managed to secure provisional pole from Alberto Nasca. Dufresne really blending well with this RDV team, and indeed that number 3 Mustang. So Dufresne and Nasca will be our front row based on the timing screen. Martin Dubek, 3rd fastest, taking some of that knowledge and data and information from the EuroNASCAR Pro session. He's 3rd fastest. Vladimir Tsiortsis, what could have been? He will line up 4th on the grid after coming to a halt between Druids and Graham Hill Bend. Patrick Schauber in the 27 double V car. We didn't mention Patrick, but he got up there into 5th place on the 3rd row of the grid, so huge congratulations to him and Double V Racing. Gil Linster, despite the bonnet attacking his windscreen at one point, he lines up 6th. Melvin de Groot will be 7th fastest in the session. Well, 7th fastest overall. Of course, he was in the earlier Group 1 session, but he'll be 7th on the grid, along with Fabio Remeggio Capelli on that 4th row. And just to round out the top 10, Jack Davidson, the British hopeful in the 48 car, he has done enough to secure 9th on the grid ahead of Riccardo Romagnoli. From there, it is practically all drivers from the previous session whose times we have already covered. So then, that is the end of qualifying for EuroNASCAR this weekend. From here on out, all of their action will be racing. And we know that in EuroNASCAR 2, it will be Paul Dufresne who leads from pole.
What the fuck?
There's a throw to you, Andre. You're live.
100% sure that he gave the commentary to me. Okay, I'm here with you. The first time, Paul Dufresne, pole position in the last lap. Amazing run.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting that at all. You know, yesterday we were kind of we were 5/10 from the pole position, so I just took the qualification with no pressure. I wasn't expecting me to go to the pole position. You know, I just wanted to drive with fun, and it's always the best things to do when you want to be fast. It's to drive with the smile, don't do mistake, and yeah, it's just amazing. I didn't expect it that at all.
How is it to know that you will lead the EuroNASCAR 2 grid, the field, to the green flag in front of 10,000 of people today?
I don't know. It's the first time, so I don't know really the feelings. But I'm just excited to race, and I want to do a good race. Brands Hatch is the track that you want to be in pole position. So I will not say that my race will be the perfect one, but for now I made the job to get a good start, and I hope this will continue all the race.
All right, merci beaucoup, congratulations.
De rien, merci.
Back to Adam. I'm sorry for that, man.
It's okay, Andre, that's on me. I thought that was a clear enough throwdown. I thought it was all smooth and lovely, but Paul Dufresne, 48.621 is our pole time then in EuroNASCAR 2, and Dufresne in the number 3 car will be our pole sitter in EuroNASCAR 2. As he said, it's all going to be a bit new to him when he lines up on that pole position for the race later on. So we do have 2 races to come. 4 races in total across the weekend, but 2 races on this American Speed Fest Saturday. And I believe we can take a look at the schedule so you know exactly when to come back to us. At 12:50 UK time, 13:50 Central European, we have round 3 of the EuroNASCAR Pro Championship. A nice early start for anyone over in America as well. And at 5:30 Central European, 4:30 UK time, you have round 3 of the season for the EuroNASCAR 2 category. Of course, from there, round 4 on the Sunday for both championships as well. So plenty of racing action still to come this weekend. Plenty of festivities still to come at American Speed Fest. If you're watching from somewhere within a 100-mile radius of Kent, you could still get there for the racing that comes later on, or indeed you could come along for Sunday at American Speed Fest. The EuroNASCAR Championship, a wonderful range of American support. US NASCAR Cup car demos, the Garage 56 Le Mans NASCAR is here as well. There is so much to see and do at the American Speed Fest, and we'll bring it all to you in just a little while when we go racing at Brands Hatch.